be careful not to become the thing that you hate about your enemies. That's sage-like wisdom that regardless of your political affiliations or ideology, everybody should keep that in mind. With that said, let's discuss the backlash that I got after making a critical remark about Eric July's new Rippaverse character. Welcome to Actual Fandom. Please hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and if this is the kind of video you want to see more of, hit the like button. So Eric July is a libertarian YouTuber and alleged fan of comic books, even though he seems to pretty much hate everything. Why does he hate everything? If I'm talking about him on this channel, it probably means he hates everything because it's woke, SJW, agenda, political, all the buzzwords. Whatever they all mean, because I can't get anybody to define them consistently. And just like the Fandom Menace and Comicsgate, despite saying that they don't want politics in their media, all of their content is very politically focused while pretending to be apolitical. Or maybe they just don't consider their specific brand of politics to be politics. You never can tell with these grifters. Point is, if it's even vaguely inclusive or has a hint of progressive values in it, Eric July is going to call it political. Despite the fact that comics have always had a progressive political slant ever since, Captain America punched Hitler and Superman helped the working class in their very first appearances. That's right, Captain America was the first Antifa super soldier. So back to Mr. July. He recently announced the Rippaverse, which is basically like Comicsgate under a different name. It's an attempt to monetize his already established YouTube fan base, which is made up of sensitive, outrage-addicted conservatives who play the victim to anything that's to the left of Trump. Rippaverse, similar to any books that fall under the vague Comicsgate banner, is crowdfunded and apparently made a lot of money upon launch. But Rippaverse is at least not directly tied to Comicsgate from what I can tell, which is a good thing, considering the stench of bigotry and harassment and hate campaigns that Comicsgate carries around everywhere it goes. And with Rippaverse, Eric July has announced its first title, Isom, which is where the attacks on me, calling me racist, come into the picture. Before we get into the specifics of that though, a few things. Eric July is a paid contributor of The Blaze, a right-wing conservative media brand founded by Glenn Beck. The Blaze is obviously and hilariously deceptive and agenda-driven, having pulled stunts like deceptively editing an interview of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to make her appear that she's rambling incoherently. Before, after enough backlash, they eventually branded it as satire. Responsible media outlets would not do that. Create a satirical video without actually saying, hey, this is satire. Conservatives, as we found out with The Boys, are immune to satire. Watch that video here. The Blaze contributor John Miller also said that Parasite director Bong Joon-ho is the destruction of America after the acclaimed filmmaker gave his Oscar acceptance speech in Korean. The Factual, a website measuring media bias and trustworthiness, says, over a dataset of 1,000 articles, The Blaze scored an average factual grade of 53.4%. This is below the average of 61.9% for all 240 news sources that we analyzed. This places The Blaze in the 15th percentile of our dataset. These low scores are explained by The Blaze's tendency to publish articles that lack quality news sources, use less supporting evidence for their claims, and feature authors with low expertise on specific topics. The Blaze has experienced numerous layoffs in the past few years, which may be a contributing factor to these scores. So, not as bad as some other conservative outlets, but definitely not great. So while I do not recommend trusting any news outlet without verifying facts and sources for yourself, I definitely recommend taking extra caution with The Blaze, which is Eric July's employer. Secondly, and this might get me in some trouble with some of my comic book friends on the left, I think Eric's character Isom looks pretty badass. My criticism, as I'll get into a minute, wasn't that the character looks bad overall. Isom, I'm assuming, is short for isomer, which, if that's the case and that has something to do with his power set, that's pretty rad. He's somewhat of a traditional-looking superhero, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a superhero created by a libertarian is a very interesting concept to me, because libertarians generally believe that people should deal with their own problems, I got mine. So, the idea of a libertarian superhero seems to clash in my mind, but, it's apolitical. But I really don't know a lot about the character, so, maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe Eric will send me a copy to review. Thirdly, I am fully aware that no matter what I say in this video, unless I'm praising Eric July, I will be called a racist by some of his fans. Within minutes of my remark about his character on Twitter, I had a whole bunch of his fans in my replies there, and then several came over to my YouTube channel and just started commenting randomly under videos, calling me a racist. I won't defend myself from those claims, because those of you who know my channel know better, and the people making those claims aren't doing so in good faith. One such comment said that I'm just another white guy who thinks Black Lives Matter unless it's a black guy I disagree with politically, which is just so dumb. It's really, really dumb. There's a whole lot of data that supports the fact that systemic racism is a real thing and a real problem. One black dude saying otherwise doesn't just change reality. And if you think it does, you're kind of an idiot. But I suspect to these people that make that claim, it doesn't really matter. To conservatives, all they care about is getting a hollow, cynical, gotcha, no context or nuance needed. In fact, those are the enemies of conservatism. So the comment that I made under Eric July's tweet about his comic book Isom, dude, big fan of Mr. Terrific. So cool you made Isom wear the exact same suit. Rob Liefeld levels of originality. I love it. Okay, so that's pretty snarky, I'll admit that. Like I said, the character looks kind of rad, and that's in large part because Mr. Terrific looks pretty rad. To my eye, when I first saw Isom, he appeared to have a giant T on his chest, like Mr. Terrific. Apparently I was mistaken and it's an I, but that actually knocked some points off of the design because it was unclear. But I know you see the similarity in the costume, and if you're pretending it's about anything else, you're being dishonest. Not only that, you're being hypocritical. That's right, I was immediately canceled by fans of young Rippa, Eric July, for being racist. I didn't say anything about race, and I didn't even imply anything about race. I was pretty specific about what I was talking about. It's honestly weird that his fans, who are definitely the type of folks to say that the left uses racism as a shield from criticism, resorted to that, when the point of my tweet is very, very clear. Really seems pretty dishonest and insincere. They've spent years crying that the left calls everything they don't like racist, and yet here they are, becoming what they hate. It's a sign of weak character. Like if I created a superhero with a big S in a diamond-shaped shield on his chest, you'd go, that looks like Superman, dude. And look, comics have a long history of characters being inspired by other characters. It's not a big deal. What's a big deal is that Eric's fans being so irate and using fake concerns of racism as a defense against a pretty harmless and obvious jab at the costume. I actually care very much about the issue of racism, as anyone who watches my channel knows. So it kind of pisses me off when people play victim disingenuously like this. It cheapens the reality of racism. So here's the deal. Maybe Rippaverse ends up putting out great comics, maybe not. But they claim to be giving the mainstream industry a run for its money. So let's take a look at that. Rippaverse nabbed an impressive nearly $2 million upon launch. That's impressive for an indie publisher that has yet to publish a comic book. But it's not very impressive when compared to the $420 million dollars that Marvel and DC claimed in 2021. Rippaverse has a long way to go before the big two even notice their existence. But hey, I wish them luck. They'll need it. Now, there are valid questions regarding those self-reported Isom #1 numbers, as the crowdfunding is done through the Rippaverse website and not a third party. But until I have more to go on, I'm not going to make any specific allegations or anything. I'm just saying it's noticeable that it's not done through, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or anything like that. And that the only person that has real access to the numbers is, the person that's collecting the money and advertising the money that they're getting. So what is Rippaverse selling if they haven't actually made any comics yet, but they've raked in almost $2 million? They're selling a conservative victimhood that the right peddles all the time these days. Mainstream comics are woke, trash, SJW, agenda, political, all the buzzwords. And here's our alternative. Same marketing gimmick as Comicsgate, same marketing gimmick as Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire film studio that just marketed a Gina Carano movie, not with the plot or critical praise or anything like that, but with Gina was canceled, now she's back. If you look for it, you'll see this tactic in virtually everything conservatives do. And in the meantime, they'll claim victory simply by offering easily led conservatives a half-ass alternative. As superstar Marvel artist Mark Brooks once said on this channel, if you can't sell your product on its own merits, it's not a good sign. Rippaverse seems to not have faith in their comics, or they just market them as good stories. But instead, it's all about how it's not political, and so on. But considering pretty much everything is political, the idea of apolitical comics strikes me as a hilariously bad faith attempt to sell right-wing comics to right-wing audiences. Please be sure you're subscribed and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And remember, actual fandom means be an ambassador, not a gatekeeper.
Fuck them hoe ass roads.